Departure 2. After some time, our progress seemed to slow down somewhat, and I felt that there was something very solid beneath my feet. What I saw when I opened my eyes was the old house where I had lived, my old home. But with one difference. It was more beautiful, in a way that I had never been able to capture in its earthly counterpart. It was as if it had been rejuvenated rather than restored, and this struck me at first glance, but what caught my attention most strongly were the gardens surrounding it. They seemed to be very large and revealed perfect care and arrangement. By this I do not mean the regular order we are accustomed to seeing in public gardens on earth. What I mean is that they were wonderfully maintained. There were no wild plants, tangled foliage, or weeds, but rather the most glorious profusion of stunning flowers, arranged to display their absolute perfection. As for the flowers themselves, when I was able to examine them more closely, I must say I had never seen any like them or even similar to them on earth, and many of them were in full bloom. Some, of course, could be linked to familiar flowers, but most of them seemed to me to be something completely new, at least in light of my limited knowledge in that field. It was not, however, simply the flowers themselves and their incredible variety and beauty of colors that captured my attention, but rather the atmosphere of eternal vitality that they radiated in every direction. And as I approached any group of flowers or even individual blooms. And so, in the company of my old friend, who walked beside me as my guide, I strolled along the garden paths, over the delicate grass, so springy and soft that it almost felt like walking on air. All the while, I tried to convince myself that all that superlative beauty was part of my own home. There were also many magnificent trees. None of them were misshapen, as is usually the case on earth, yet there was no sense of a narrow, monotonous uniformity. From each simple bud, it seemed, a great life force sprang forth that spiritually uplifted the soul and gave it strength, while the most delicate fragrances were such that no person, still clothed in the mantle of their body, had ever experienced. All these flowers were alive and breathing and were, as my friend told me, incorruptible. There was another extraordinary element I became aware of as I approached the flowers. It was the music that enveloped them and created extraordinary harmonies that corresponded exactly to their splendid colors. I was already so aware of the revitalizing effect of this astonishing garden that I was eager to see other things. I had noticed that there was nothing beneath the trees that we normally call shade, and yet there did not seem to be any blinding sun. Instead, the impression was of a light that penetrated every corner without, however, causing anything to appear flat. My friend told me that this light came directly from God. Each tree was simply growing in perfect conditions, free from the torment of the wind that bends and twists the younger branches, and free from insects and many other causes that lead to the deformation of trees on earth. As with the flowers, so it is with the trees. They live forever, incorruptible, eternally clothed in their dense foliage, and always radiating life to those who approach them. Arrival in the afterlife. There is a light of divine life that illuminates the entire spiritual world where those who had spiritual eyes to see lived. I also noticed that a pleasant warmth pervaded every space. The air was calm, and yet fragrant breezes, the truest zephyrs, blowed, in no way altering that ideal temperature. I was also struck by the fact that there was no sign of walls, hedges, or fences. In fact, as far as I could see, nothing marked the boundaries of my garden. So we walked until we found such a pleasant spot beneath the branches of a magnificent tree, from which we could admire a view of the countryside, its lush vegetation undulating as it stretched out before us, until it faded from sight in the distance. The entire landscape was bathed in sunlight, and I could see many houses of various styles nestled among the greenery, between trees and gardens. We lay down on the soft grass, and I felt as if I were lying on the most comfortable of beds. My friend asked me if I was tired. I felt no physical or earthly fatigue, and yet I somehow felt the need to relax my body. He told me that my recent illness was the cause of such a desire and that, if I wanted to, I could slip into a state of complete sleep. At that moment, however, I felt absolutely no desire to do so, and I told him that I would much rather listen to him speak.